Okay, in this lesson we're going to build on what you know about straight lines and straight angles. In a previous video we talked about supplementary angles. And we're going to look at a situation that at first glance looks like it's more complicated, but what you have to realize is this situation doesn't have much information to figure out. Okay, it's very, very simple as long as you learn how to view things just kind of in your mind rather than trying to worry about every detail out there. Just look for a couple of relationships. Now what we have here are parallel lines, and the reason I say they're parallel is these little arrows right here. You have to look for those. You see these arrows, two arrows on one line, two arrows on the other line. That right there tells you that they're parallel. There's lots of ways to show this, but that's one of them. And then notice this line that cuts through them we call the transversal, and that's just any line coming in any direction that happens to pass through these parallel lines. Now if you see this situation, you can figure out pretty much everything about this entire drawing in terms of angles basically in your head. Okay, it doesn't take much effort. Now usually when you see this you're going to be given one piece of information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one thing here that well, let's just pick some piece of information. Let's say we were told this angle right here is 120 degrees. Okay. Now what I'm going to tell you is there are several other angles in this whole relationship that are also 120 degrees. Let's see if we can find them. Most of the time you can just look at them and see, but this is a property of parallel lines. As long as these two lines are going the same direction, they're going to have the same angles when they're cut by a transversal. Now I'm going to look at this 120 degree angle and see, is there another one that happens to look the same? Well, how about this one? That looks pretty much the same, and yep, you're right, it's 120 degrees. Okay, now what about on the other side of that transversal? Looking over here, well, that looks pretty small. That can't be 120 degrees, but what about this one? That's 120. What about this one? That's 120. Oh, okay, we know four angles on this thing, and we haven't done any work yet. Okay, they're all the same. And what you'll notice is your teacher will tell you about some different terminologies you have to get used to, but these angles right here, this one and this one, we call alternating exterior. Alternating because they're on opposite sides of the transversal, exterior because they're on the outside of the parallel lines. These ones here, those are called alternating interior. On opposite sides, but they're in between the parallel lines. And those sets are always the same, always. Now, what about these other ones? Can we figure those out? Let's go back to this one right here. Well, let's look at our previous knowledge. We knew that straight lines are 180 degrees. Okay. And if I know that this little portion over here is 120, well then all I have to do is 120 and take that away from 100. Oops, I'm running out of room here. Let me erase this and put it somewhere else. I have to take 120 away from 180, and I get 60 degrees. So the leftover piece right here is 60 degrees. Well, where's our other 60 degree angles? Oh, remember how we had alternating exterior angles were the same? Well, still true. Here's 60 degrees. Over here, 60 degrees. Oh, and you know what? Here's another 60 degree angle, and here's another 60 degree angle. Okay. And my point is, there's really only two angle measurements in this entire drawing. And as long as I know one piece of information to start with, I can figure everything else out. And how much math did it take? Not much at all. That was it. Okay, what it takes is logic, and it takes you to apply some of the knowledge you had before of straight lines, okay, and go, oh, let me see if I can take something away from 180, and that's it. We can fill in everything else we know. Now there's obviously shortcuts. Okay, we have alternating exterior, alternating interior lines. Your teacher will talk to you about consecutive interior angles. There's a lot of little shortcuts to take, but most of this can be figured out just by looking at it and logically walking through it.